A beautiful river, stunning jungle-covered mountains and knowledgeable guides. What more could an adventurous tourist want? But until recently, this journey would have been almost unthinkable. Our guides are former fighters with the Free Aceh Movement, or GAM. They know the jungle well, no surprise given they've spent much of their lives in these mountains. Only 4 years ago, this was a war zone, but the men seem comfortable with the transition from soldier to tour guide.
For me, this is not strange because it's a good job. I'm happy for myself and for my friends because we can work together as guides.
Acehexplorer Tours is the brainchild of Mendel Pols, a Dutchman whose wife is Achenese.
So this is one of the caves in this area, which is actually very beautiful. Some people have actually gone in here. But yeah, it's quite dark. Now at the moment when, since it's raining, a lot of water has entered, but normally you can actually swim inside this cave.
2 years ago he started recruiting former GAM fighters to go back into the jungle.
I got the idea actually from the Vietnam War, where former Viet Cong would show around tourists in their former hideouts. And I went with my idea to the governor, and he issued a recommendation letter to start organizing these tours.
For farmers turned soldiers, the men really aren't bad as tour guides. And as we trek up the mountain, they point out what they claim is evidence of Aceh's decades-long conflict. This is a dish used by Indonesian soldiers that fought here, he says. Nearby is a soldier's boot. We don't argue about why it's still lying on this now reasonably well-worn trail, and it's hard to know how much of this is tourist spin or real. But the men's stories of hardship during the conflict do sound authentic.
I have a lot of bad memories. The worst is when we were living on top of the mountain. We had a big well for water, but we had been away for a while. When we came back, we found a dead animal in the well, so we couldn't use it for drinking or bathing. But we had to have our food, so we still cooked with the water. When we went to eat our rice, it was full of maggots. If we didn't eat, we couldn't fight, so we had to eat it.
A rest on the trail gives us a chance to talk more to our guides. In his 20s, Amansha joined GAM as a village spy, before becoming a jungle fighter. His brother Zulkiram was about the same age when he took to the jungle. They say another brother was killed by Indonesian soldiers.
The reason I joined GAM because I wanted justice, because TNI came to the village and the victims were innocent people, villagers. I wanted Aceh to be independent, to have its own president and to be wealthy. Like now, many people are wealthy.
So this is almost the top of the mountain, and our guides tell us that this spot was a former GAM camp where they used to stay to supply an outpost just over to my right, where they could look out over the valley below and monitor any Indonesian army activity. It's a rough spot, and even when GAM fighters camped here, you can't imagine it would have been much better. From the lookout you can see all the way to the sea. It's a beautiful view over land that was fought over and then devastated by the tsunami. We stayed here to man the outpost, Aman Shah says. But about 2 months after the tsunami, the Indonesian army launched a big attack with mortars. Proudly, he says GAM fighters were superior because they fought one-on-one, not with heavy weapons. Amid the camaraderie of these men, it's easy to forget that many Indonesians regard them as violent separatists who fought a savage war against their own country.
We were not separatists, we were not terrorists because we were fighting for our right. Indonesia colonized Aceh, so we had to fight. There was no other way than war.
Some Indonesian media have been critical of these rebel tours, which they say make money out of showing tourists where Indonesian soldiers were killed. But Mendel Pols believes that without this work, the men would probably be unemployed. With the tsunami reconstruction period winding up, finding jobs is becoming even harder.
There are mixed reactions. It depends actually on who you're talking to. If, for example, you're talking to an Indonesian soldier who is originally from Aceh, they are in general quite positive about this. If you talk to an Indonesian soldier who is not originally from Aceh, for example, who is from Java or from North Sumatra, they are, shall we say, a bit skeptical. Because although we have peace in Aceh, the feeling of the enemy feeling is still a bit strong.
Back at the top of the mountain, it's decided that the darkening sky means it's time we head down. You have to remember to take your eyes off your feet or risk missing the jungle scenery.
Well, we've now reached the bottom of what was a pretty tough climb down the mountain. Most of it was spent on the seat of our pants as we slid down some pretty muddy trails. Our guides jokingly said that this was a mountain for Achenese only, but it really wasn't a joke. You can see how difficult it would have been to fight a guerrilla war up here against men who really know the mountain and the jungle.
In a sign of how much Aceh has changed, children now play in the river where our guides once ventured down secretly for water. Aceh's peace is holding for now, but the former GAM fighters say that if it fails, they might take up arms again.
I can't say for sure because that is up to God. Maybe our leaders say we should fight, but no one wants to fight. But if we are colonised, even if we don't want to go to war, we will have to.
If there is a conflict again in Aceh, the people who will be the victims will be the villagers, because the village people can't hide in the jungle. For me, if there is a conflict again, maybe I will fight.
Then the tourists will vanish from here and the forests once again become a stage for a bitter conflict.